we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on Firstpost America. Hello everyone, and thanks for tuning in. Today we look at Donald Trump's recent threat to Hamas, as well as an oil smuggling operation led by Iran that was recently uncovered. All that and more coming up, but first, a look at the latest headlines. President-elect Donald Trump to attend the reopening of the Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris on Saturday. The iconic 12th century monument will be reopened this week after it was extensively damaged by a fire in 2019. A Delaware judge blocks Elon Musk's $56 billion CEO pay package once again. The judge also finds that Tesla made misstatements to shareholders about the effect of their vote regarding Elon Musk's pay deal. Israel and Hezbollah exchange a barrage of attacks after accusing each other of violating the ceasefire agreement. Washington urges both sides to de-escalate and stick to the ceasefire's conditions. French President Emmanuel Macron meets Saudi Crown Prince in Riyadh. The visit comes as far-right and left-wing parties at home submit a no-confidence motion against President Macron's government as he visits the Royal Saudi Kingdom. And a former employee files a lawsuit against tech giant Apple, accusing the company of illegally monitoring the mobile phones of employees. The suit also claims Apple monitored its employees even when they were at home. We begin in the United States, where President-elect Donald Trump has issued a stern warning to Hamas, demanding the release of hostages from Gaza before his inauguration next January. Donald Trump has said either the hostages should be set free or there will be, quote, hell to pay in the Middle East.
Everybody is talking about the hostages who are being held so violently, inhumanely, and against the will of the entire world in the Middle East. But it's all talk and no action. Please let this truth serve to represent that if the hostages are not released prior to January 20th, 2025, the date that I proudly assume office as President of the United States, there will be all hell to pay in the Middle East and for those in charge who perpetrated these atrocities against humanity. Those responsible will be hit harder than anybody has been hit in the long and storied history of the United States of America. Release the hostages now.
The Palestinian group captured around 250 hostages when it launched the deadliest assault on Israel on October 7th of last year. About 100 of those hostages, including several Americans, are still in captivity, with a third confirmed as dead. There was only one brief pause in the war a year ago when Hamas released around 105 hostages, and some hostages have been rescued by the Israeli military during operations in Gaza. Now, Donald Trump has offered no further details on what he plans to do if Hamas does not, in fact, release the hostages before January 20th. However, this statement is his most exact on the Gaza war since his re-election on November 5th. The president-elect's latest demand comes just 2 days after Hamas released a propaganda video showing an Israeli-American hostage, Eden Alexander, pleading to secure his release.
President Trump. My name is Eden Alexander. I am an American Israeli citizen currently being held captive in the Gaza Strip. As an American, I've always believed in the power of the United States. And now, I'm sending my message. Use your influence and the full power of the United States to negotiate for our freedom. Every day here feels like an eternity, and the pain from inside grows.
Alexander's mother said she was shaken by the video and urged Donald Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to bring her son home safely.
Listen, I'm still shaking, like, I don't know if people can see me, but I'm shaking. I'm still I cannot believe I didn't saw Idan for 421 days, and suddenly to see him alive and speaking, and when he cried, I just want to hold him, you know. It was very, very, very tough to see. I'm hoping that he's still gonna stay brave and strong, and I want him to know that we are doing everything that we can to bring him home.
Now, reports say Donald Trump is pushing for a ceasefire to be reached before he retakes the White House. But again, it's unclear which tactics he might use that have not already been used by Israel, the President Joe Biden, and other international mediators to end the deadly war. And staying in the United States, New York City is now home to 58,000 illegal immigrants who are either convicted felons or are facing criminal charges. The New York Post recently published data from the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, which shows there are more than 759,000 undocumented migrants living in New York City alone. And of these, a staggering 7.7% have been found guilty of crimes or have criminal charges pending. This also includes over 1,000 illegal immigrants who are suspected or known gang members. Now, across the country, the count of unauthorized migrants with criminal convictions or charges is over 662,000. The shocking report comes a week after New York City top immigration official Kenneth Gianello said it would take a lifetime to clear the city of the criminals if the status quo remains the same. Gianello also expressed frustration over New York sanctuary laws, which prevents illegal immigrants from being deported, making it harder to weed out criminals.
The only people they're shielding are the criminals. And they're shielding the criminals from us. The majority of these crimes that are being committed are against the most vulnerable people in the community, and that's the migrant females and the migrant children. I don't understand how they believe sanctuary policies are helping or assisting.
Critics say instead of taking action against criminal immigrants, New York City is now providing them with free lodging and food, which only risk public safety. With an overburdened shelter system, New York City officials are even offering immigrants free one-way plane tickets to entice them into leaving the city. However, given the number of criminal migrants, such generous giveaways only increase the chances of them fleeing and becoming a threat elsewhere in the United States. Republicans say the latest data shows the impact of President Joe Biden's soft on crime and lax border control police.
It's shocking that Democrats have gone so far out of their way to harbor gang members, drug traffickers, and other criminals who are in our country illegally. In many cases, they've provided them with housing, food, and health care. They need to stop using New Yorkers' hard-earned tax dollars to shield criminals wreaking havoc on our streets and instead cooperate with ICE to have them deported.
Now, the sentiment is not limited to just Republicans. In fact, some Democrats believe that current laws are shielding criminals instead of protecting New York City residents.
These numbers make it clear what everyone but our elected officials already know. Sanctuary city laws are endangering New Yorkers by shielding criminals instead of protecting law-abiding citizens.
Even the city's Democratic Mayor Eric Adams thinks sanctuary laws should be loosened to round up serious criminal migrants. Now, as New York City grapples with the influx of illegal migrants, some with criminal backgrounds, it remains to be seen if city officials will in fact cooperate with the incoming Trump administration to curb the crisis. Donald Trump has named Kash Patel as his pick for the FBI director, sparking controversy across Washington. His background includes work as a federal prosecutor as well as a public defender. But critics argue Patel lacks the experience needed to lead the nation's top law enforcement agency. FBI Director Chris Wray still has 3 years left in his term, which means Patel's nomination could face strong bipartisan opposition. Here's more in our next report.
Kash Patel, or most commonly referred to as Kash Patel, is Donald Trump's controversial FBI director pick. Known for his ardent support for the president-elect, Patel has positioned himself as a staunch opponent of Washington's establishment.
I'm here to tell you, after 6 weeks of unconstitutional trials, we have finally found a crime. Michael Cohen admitted on the witness stand just this morning to 6 different felonies of stealing Donald Trump's money. After 6 weeks of trial, we finally have a crime. We also have a victim. That victim is Donald J. Trump.
And now he's eyeing the leadership of the same FBI he once vowed to dismantle.
It is a total bastardization of due process. I am honored to be here in support of Donald J. Trump. He is being victimized, but we as a country are being victimized even more by the unconstitutional weaponization of justice and the two-tier system of justice that is on full display.
Patel's career path is far from conventional. Born to Hindu immigrant parents in New York, he described himself as apolitical during his upbringing. However, his college years at the University of Richmond shifted his views to the right. Despite this, Patel began his legal career as a public defender, a role he later admitted was a strange fit.
While I was very excited to start, it was admittedly a strange fit. As I mentioned, I grew up pretty apolitical. Through my college years, I started to move more and more to the right politically. But public defenders are left-wing. These are the types of people who often don't mind letting criminals off the hook because they had a bad upbringing or because they didn't hurt the victims that badly.
Patel rose to prominence as a federal prosecutor handling terrorism cases against Al-Qaeda and ISIS. He claimed involvement in prosecuting the Benghazi attack perpetrators, though reports suggest his role was minor. Later, as a House Intelligence Committee aide to Republican Devin Nunes, Patel became a key figure in efforts to undermine the FBI's Russia investigation. However, his alliance with Trump deepened his National Security Council tenure. By the end of Donald Trump's first term, Patel served as acting Secretary of Defense Christopher Miller's chief of staff, overseeing a chaotic Pentagon transition. His loyalty earned him consideration for senior roles including CIA director. The president-elect's selection of Patel is not without hurdles though. FBI Director Christopher Wray, a Trump appointee, still has 3 years left in his term.
I am given the honor of leading this agency. I will never allow the FBI's work to be driven by anything other than the facts, the law, and the impartial pursuit of justice. Period. Full stop. My loyalty is to the Constitution and to the rule of law.
And removing Wray would face bipartisan opposition. So while Patel's Senate confirmation is expected to be contentious, some in Trump's circle question his suitability for the role.
I categorically opposed making Patel deputy FBI director. I told Mark Meadows it would happen over my dead body. In the first place, all leadership positions in the Bureau, except the director, have always been FBI agents. They've all gone through the same agent training and have had broad experience in the field and headquarters. Someone with no background as an agent would never be able to command the respect necessary to run the day-to-day operations of the Bureau.
Despite his polarizing image, Patel's commitment to Trump's agenda knows no bounds. From pushing claims of election fraud to overseeing Pentagon operations, his loyalty is unwavering. Whether this makes him an asset or a liability is hotly debated. But as Patel stands on the cusp of leading the FBI, the stakes are monumental. His potential appointment could reshape the nation's premier law enforcement agency.
And now from the Middle East, where a sprawling oil smuggling network has been uncovered in Iran. Experts believe that this smuggling network generates an estimated $1 to $3 billion annually. And the illegal oil trade has flourished since Iran's neighbor Iraq got a new prime minister back in 2022. Operating under the Iraqi leader, oil is being diverted from Iran to Iraq and being exported to Asia using falsified documentation.
The historic geographical situation of Iraq turns the country from one that needs the ports of others to a country overseeing a sea overlooking the Gulf, which is the biggest waterway in the world where energy and trade activities are concentrated, as well as communication and exchange happen in different forms.
Now central to this shadow operation are influential Iranian militant groups who are backed by Tehran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. These Iranian proxies are reportedly leveraging control over Iraq's state company that oversees the oil industry. Iran and Iraq have even set up fake oil firms that exist only on paper, allowing easier smuggling of the oil.
The smuggling convoys are accompanied by a heavily armed military escort to ensure their safe passage, showing the value placed on these operations by Iranian militias and the Iranian regime.
Now, the smuggling operation has two main routes. The Iranian fuel is first blended and sold as Iraqi to evade sanctions imposed by the United States. And the second, subsidized fuel is fraudulently exported as blended byproducts of Iranian crude. The blending, often carried out during ship-to-ship transfers at Iraq's two major ports, exploits the similarity between Iraqi and Iranian fuel grades, making tracking of the Iranian oil nearly impossible.
There are a lot of distraction tactics for the oil shipments. It goes at night, it goes in loops, and nobody knows where it's going. But it's a substantial amount that's floating around.
Now, this illicit trade isn't new, but it has expanded in the last 2 years, making it difficult for the United States to enforce sanctions on Iran. However, Washington is aware of Tehran's oil smuggling operations, along with the involvement of Iranian proxy groups who are subject to U.S. sanctions. During the September visit of Iraq's prime minister to the United States, a State Department official confirmed that the extensive smuggling of oil was in fact discussed.
While we cannot comment on specific conversations, we can confirm that the department has stressed with our Iraqi colleagues the harms of illegal trade and our support to bring oil transparently onto the market.
Now, it is widely believed that Iran's illegal oil experts are helping Tehran fund its proxy groups like Hezbollah and Hamas. Profits from the illegal oil trade are also being used by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps to fund its military manufacturing, particularly ballistic missiles and attack drones, which are now being bought by Russia. But now that this complex scheme has been uncovered, and more importantly, U.S. officials now know how the illicit proceeds from the smuggling are being used, will there be a major crackdown as a result? Only time will tell. And finally, from Canada, a Montreal shopping mall has decided to tackle homelessness by exposing them to an all-out musical assault. A children's nursery rhyme called Baby Shark is being played on loop, particularly in the emergency stairwells, to prevent homeless people from seeking shelter inside the mall. Now, it's a strategy so unconventional that it's left Canadians actually fuming. And as the nation faces a growing homelessness crisis, outrage is rising as some are calling the strategy psychological torture. Here's more from Montreal.
Good old Canada, a land famed for politeness, maple syrup, and apparently turning children's tunes into weapons of mass annoyance. A mall in Montreal called Complexe Desjardins Mall decided to take on homelessness by blasting the Baby Shark song on loop. Yes, you heard that right. Forget about affordable housing or social programs. This mall in Montreal figured a children's earworm was the answer to a systemic crisis. Canada is really raising the bar here. Picture this. You're a homeless person in Montreal trying to find warmth from the brutal cold. And you find peace in an emergency stairwell. Then suddenly the Baby Shark song's sharp to-do-do-do-do echo pierces the air like an auditory nightmare. The mall's brilliant plan? To use Baby Shark as a sonic scarecrow to deter loitering. Apparently, this has been going on for over a year now, with the mall's spokesperson smugly dubbing it a sound solution. If only solving homelessness were as simple as weaponizing children's music. Critics, naturally, were less impressed. Sam Watts, the CEO of Welcome Hall Mission, called out the tactic for what it is: juvenile, exclusionary, and wildly ineffective. He said, and I quote, "You can't fix homelessness with nursery rhymes." Advocates for the homeless were quick to point out this so-called solution is about as effective as putting a band-aid on a broken leg. Social media also had its own field day with this solution. David Chapman of Resilience Montreal highlighted the real issue. Canada has steadily slashed funding for homeless shelters, leaving thousands without options. But instead of tackling the root causes, cities like Montreal prefer to mask the problem, literally drowning it out with catchy jingles. And let's not forget the irony here. Complexe Desjardins Mall sits a stone's throw from the old Brewery Mission, which is Montreal's largest homelessness support organization. It's like setting up a salad bar outside a burger joint and wondering why people are still craving fries. Apparently, Montreal isn't the only place to embrace baby shark as the ultimate nuisance. A shop owner in British Columbia used it to shoo people away after hours, and officials in the American state of Florida even once blasted it to keep people from napping on city property. Because nothing says we care about you like deploying an endless loop of a children's nursery rhyme. This is where Canada's reputation for being nice starts to look more like passive aggression. Sure, the mall claims to have hired social workers to dialogue with the homeless, but when your main approach involves psychological warfare by playing Baby Shark on loop, it's clear that compassion isn't exactly their priority. At the end of the day, Montreal's Baby Shark fiasco is a reminder that addressing homelessness requires more than juvenile stunts. It demands empathy, resources, and dare we say, effort. So Canada, maybe put down the loudspeakers and pick up a housing policy manual. Because while Baby Shark might clear a stairwell, it certainly won't solve the real problem.
That's our show for today, everyone. We certainly thank you, as always, for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you right back here again tomorrow. Thanks again, everyone, for watching. From impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill, we know the issues, but above all, we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on Firstpost America.
Hello and a very warm welcome. I am Gushin Garland and you're watching Firstpost. In the next few minutes, we bring you the top 50 updates from around the world only here on Fast and Factual. Let's get started. First in, from West Asia, Iran-backed militias reportedly entered in Syria from Iraq to support the army battling rebellion.